Hello, my name's Liz Shercliffe from St Thomas Mellor in South Manchester, and I work for the Diocese of Chester as a Director of Studies. This week, as you know, we're looking at the life of St Thomas, to whom our church, the Church on the Hill, is dedicated. It's St Thomas Day on Friday. So today's reading comes from John chapter 14. It will have some familiar bits in it. Let's read it together. Do not let your hearts be troubled. Believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house there are many dwelling places. If it were not so, would I have told you that I go to prepare a place for you? And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and will take you to myself, so that where I am, there you may be also. And you know the way to the place where I am going. Thomas said to him, Lord, we don't know where you're going. How can we know the way? Jesus said to him, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. If you know me, you will know my Father also. From now on, you do know him and have seen him. Last week, my daughter sent me a photo of our 10-year-old grandson. He'd obviously been in the garden all day, and quite a lot of the garden seemed to have adhered to his clothes. My daughter had added the caption, "A dirty boy is a happy boy." A similar slogan applied to disciples in first century Palestine. A dirty disciple is a faithful disciple. Disciples walked closely behind their rabbi. As the saying goes, they walked in their rabbi's dust. And on untreated, dusty roads, that was a dirty job. And that's the focus of this passage, I think. It's Thomas's questioning that prompts Jesus to clarify what he means. I'd guess that the first and the last parts of our reading are very familiar, but perhaps not so the middle bit. We know the "in my Father's house are many dwelling places," or mansions, partly because it's often said at funeral services. And we know "I am the way, the truth, and the life," partly because they're words used by some as justification for trying to get other people to believe in the same way they do. But let's look at the passage again. Jesus says, "Don't worry, there's plenty of space in my Father's house. I'll go and get it ready, and you follow on after. You know the way to the place I'm going." And Thomas is the one to speak up. Actually, we don't know where you're going, and if we don't know where you're going, how can we know how to get there? It's a perfectly reasonable question. And that's what prompts Jesus to utter one of the 7 I am sayings that John's Gospel records. I am the way, the truth, and the life. Thomas asks Jesus a straightforward question. Where are you going, and how do we get there? When Thomas asks, how do we get there? Jesus effectively says, follow me, go where I go, do what I do. Or in the words I began with, Jesus says, a dirty disciple is a faithful disciple. In this image of St. Thomas, painted by Velázquez in 1620, we see that Thomas is holding a book. Obviously, the image is not a literal interpretation of the character of Thomas, but an indication of how he's portrayed in John's Gospel. The book is significant. Thomas asked questions. He didn't ask them because he doubted, but because he wanted to know. And his desire to know led to clarification, not only for himself, but for those around, and for us too, millennia later. Thomas shows us how to question our faith, not in order to demonstrate our own intellectual acuity, but in order to better understand the one we follow. Thomas's questions don't distance him from Jesus, as we saw yesterday. They make him follow more closely, so that he doesn't miss anything. A dirty disciple is a faithful disciple. I wonder how dirty we are, you and I.